Hey guys, it's Vanessa V. Welcome to my channel. Today's a little bit different. We're obviously not in front of my bookcase, which is literally like 3 feet away. We're on my couch instead, and I have my comfy blanket on that one of my dear friends, Mandy, gave me. Thank you, Mandy. We're also, oh, and I have my hot water here. And we'll talk about why I drink hot water in a different video. And I have my elephant Phant, P-H-A-N-T, here with me as well. Just surrounding myself with comforting things and things that make me feel calm and more balanced and all that stuff. And a few years ago, many years ago, before I started getting treatment for my post-traumatic stress disorder, I would have thought that a lot of these things were silly. But once I learned that they actually made a difference, I held on to them, and they're things that I still do. And I don't judge myself about it, and I don't feel bad about it either. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. What I wanted to talk to us about today is indecision. And that's one reason why I'm kind of talking to you guys today in this setting and in this way, because creating this video this week involved a lot of indecision, and I almost didn't make a video. So I kind of just, I don't know, this is not a very comfortable setting for me when it comes to talking to you guys on YouTube, because it's not as controlled, and you know, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and so I like to have things a lot neater. And not that I want to come across perfect, but I want the videos to be as awesome as they possibly can. And so it feels like I'm taking a little bit of a risk today to present in this way, but it's how I wanted to do it. It's how I thought would be best to do it, because it's an accurate reflection of literally how I'm feeling, literally right now. So that's why I wanted to do it like this. In case you're not familiar with my channel, by the way, this is the Crown Survivalist channel, obviously, and it's basically, we talk about ways to win at life. My life lessons and hacks and things that I've learned to basically live life with less stress and anxiety, and to just live it in more joy and victory. And a lot of it has to do with understanding how we operate mechanically, and yeah, my brain is not with me as much as I would like it to be. But anyway, all right, let's get started. Okay. So I do have like kind of a list here next to me of just what I want to talk about today, because I don't know about you guys, but when you're feeling extra, I know I've mentioned this before in other videos, but when you're feeling extra anxious and stressed and worried and all the things that we talked about in a couple videos ago, I'll link that below. That's exactly what I've been experiencing this past 5 days, maybe. And I would say, you know, there's a lot of things that have been going on, and none of them, other than COVID, which we can all empathize with, other than that, there haven't been a lot of like huge things going on. It's been a lot of smaller stuff. There is a lot of political unrest going on. I mean, that's a huge thing. That's definitely been affecting me in a negative way. My mother's coming to visit, so that's not really something that I'm like upset about or anything. I'm actually really looking forward to it if she is able to visit. But it's just, you know, added pressure. There's things to do. I want to make sure that I'm prepped and ready for her, and trying to do that amidst a pandemic is new. She hasn't visited since all this stuff kind of exploded. So that's new. A show that I was cast in for the spring got moved to the fall, and I just found out the other day that we won't actually be doing the show at all. And I understand it, but at the same time, I'm sad, I'm disappointed. There's a lot of things going on because of this pandemic that I know you can empathize with as well, that aren't happening. And I was on a podcast a few weeks ago, and we were talking about, that topic came up about, how there's so many things in our lives that are woven into okay. Whew. That are woven into who we are. Oh, gosh. I'm not sorry I'm tearing up. I am sorry that this is taking so long, because I'm sure you have things to do. Okay. There are things to do, or that we like to do in our lives, that are part of who we are. And when there's so many of those things that aren't able to happen, and you don't really realize how important they are to your happiness, your overall health, your emotions, all that stuff, that can have an effect. And I would say that that's really been the most tough thing for me. Gosh, I'm really off topic here. Sorry. We're supposed to be talking about indecision. But anyway, sorry. But that's really probably been what the hardest thing for me has been during this whole entire thing. Other than, of course, all the people dying and without jobs. Obviously, that's huge and way more important. But I would say what gets me the most surprised, what I'm most surprised about in my reaction, is how affected I am when those things aren't able to happen. And this year I had really been looking forward to doing more things that made me feel even healthier, that I had started to discover last year and the year before. And now none of those things are able to happen. And whenever I find out that they can't, I'm once again surprised. And it sort of just affects me in ways that I'm not expecting. So just stuff like that. There's other stuff that's sort of compounding everything. But because there's so much going on that is very, very negative, and I've been so focused on doing the videos, I actually haven't been as focused on myself as much as I thought that I was. And so if you're one of those people where you have a lot to do, you have kids, I don't have kids, I have dogs, and a husband. But, if you're one of those people that just has a lot of things to do, it can sort of pile up, and you can sort of not be as aware, I guess, of yourself and how you are changing, usually in a not super healthy way, because you're not focused on that, because you're so focused on outside of you, but not really as much inside. And that for me is key, given my post-traumatic stress disorder, and making sure that I take care of myself. I mean, we all definitely need to do that. And for me, that's an extreme priority for me. That way I can do the things that I want to do and live more how I want to live, and easier, and all that stuff. So all of that was sort of leading up to this week. And I just felt foggy. I felt fatigued. I felt drained, not able to focus, frustrated. I don't know if I said that, but I felt frustrated, and it worried me, because usually I'm really enthusiastic about doing these videos. I'm really looking forward to them. I have energy and focus, and it feels good. And even though I'm nervous every time I do them, and you know, I have issues with confidence every time and all that stuff, at the same time, I have really positive things that tend to outweigh what I'm feeling is negative or scary, and I try to focus on those things. But this week it just wasn't happening. And from the beginning, I think I mentioned this in my first video, but in the very beginning, I had sort of decided that this was going to be possibly a short-term thing for the pandemic. I didn't know how long that would be. And it was only a possibility that it would be short-term, just because I wanted to make sure that it was something that I could sustain and not just put out content to put out content, because that's never what I want, ever, for myself or for you. I don't want to put out fluff. I want to put out meaningful stuff that doesn't waste your time. By the way, I hope that you're feeling like this video isn't wasting your time. There is a point that I have. So thanks for sticking around. But I'm not ready to not do them. And I hope that it's something that I'm able to do for a really, really long time, because it has had such a great effect on me. And I've heard from a lot of you that it's also had a really great effect on you too. And that makes me super excited and very, very happy. And it just makes me want to keep doing them, of course. So thanks for the feedback, by the way. So I wanted to do a video this week, but at the same time I was like, okay, I'm not trying to be perfect here. If I can't do one every single week, that's okay. I want to be reliable, so I do want to post a video each week, but if I can't, it's okay. And that's something that I was trying to grapple with. You know, do I do a video this week or not? And as I was brainstorming for the video, through all of the fog and the confusion and overwhelmingness and everything, what I also didn't realize, talk about something happening without you paying attention, is that my stress and anxiety, like we've talked about before, was starting to spin up and up and up and up and up and up. Faster, more intense. I started experiencing worry. I started experiencing those shoulds that we talked about, I think, last week. I started feeling overwhelmed and overloaded, and I wasn't noticing it as much because I was so focused on what I felt like I had to do, which was to create a video for this week. And again, it was something that I wanted to do, but because it was such a fight to get to a space where I felt like I could do it well and meaningfully, the fear of not being able to do that and not being able to fulfill that distracted me from the increasing cycle that I was experiencing with my stress, worry, and anxiety and all that stuff. And it was also making it where I was more focused on just doing the task, doing the task, doing the task, instead of going, oh, this stuff's going on. Okay, maybe what I might want to do is take a break and address those things. And I didn't do that until it became so much that I had to do it. And then there was such a crash that happened afterwards. If you can, I'm sure all of us have been through that, where you just become so wound up and so overwhelmed and so overloaded where you crash at the end, and then you feel negative emotions about feeling crappy about the fact that happened, that you couldn't do what you wanted to do, that you weren't able to someone honked outside, that you weren't able to fulfill what you wanted to do and all that stuff. And it does feed into that negative cycle, and it can terribly affect us all physically and mentally and emotionally. And that's what I was experiencing. And of course that then freaks you out even more, because you're then like, oh my gosh, I can't function 100% right now. What do I do? More time has been lost. I have less time to do it. I can't even get to where I want to go, and yada, yada, yada. So anyway, that's what was happening to me. So this video is about sharing. It's about connecting, because I want you to know that I understand what you're going through. at least I on some level, when you go through this, I also go through this. Not that you thought that I didn't, but I do a lot. And that's one reason that I share all the stuff that I do, because I constantly have to work through stuff every single day to make sure that I'm able to be my best self. Okay, I had to get a little bit of water. So before we go, because I know I've talked kind of a lot, thanks for still being here, by the way, and joining in. I did want to talk to you guys really quickly about what the process was that I went through to work through the indecision that I had and get to a place where I felt like I could make a video. So I'm gonna break it down very basically just to save time, but I do plan to make a video in the near future that goes more in depth into indecision, what it is, what causes it, what we can do about it, etc. Because it's actually pretty interesting, and I think it's really important. I think if I had known the information that I know now after looking more into it, I would have been able to get through it faster and get to a more happier place quicker, I guess, if I put it like that, or whatever. Again, foggy brain. All right, so what is indecision? Really quickly, I looked into it and it really stood out to me. Basically, what I found is that indecision at its core is a fear of failure. And at first I was like, well, that's not me in this situation. I'm not afraid of failing. I'm overwhelmed. I'm foggy brained. I'm feeling just kind of like a hot mess on the inside a little bit. But I'm not afraid to fail. But then once I mulled it over and I chewed on it a little bit, I kind of realized, yeah, at its core, sort of the driving force, but also the end result of everything going on is that, yeah, at its core, I was afraid to fail because I was afraid to not be able to do a video, which would have felt like failure because it wasn't a decision that I wanted to make. But also, what if it had been not the quality that I felt that I could do at the time? And that's really important to me as well, because any content I put out, I want it to be worth your while, worth my while, and not waste anybody's time and really provide meaningful help and encouragement. And I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to do that. It can also be driven by perfectionism. And at first I was like, well, that's not me in this situation. And yes, I'm a recovering perfectionist, but in this case, it's not me. But again, once I mulled it over, I was like, okay, yeah, I guess that's in there too. Because again, I want to put out the best product that I can. I want to connect with you in the best way that I can. And if I can't do that, then, So that was definitely part of it for sure. Let me check my list because my brain. Oh yeah. Knowing too little amounts of information. So I feel like we've all been there with this, where we have decisions to make and we just feel like we don't know enough. If we only knew more. And because we don't know as much as we want to know, it makes it really difficult to know what the decision is, right? So that can definitely be me as well. And also roadblocks. For me, for sure, when I'm starting to think things over and brainstorm and all that stuff, a lot of times those roadblocks pop up and you can sort of start to feel their presence, the power of their presence, or the presence of their power. And they can start to seem overwhelming and overloading and bigger than they actually are, and the stakes are higher than they actually are. And it can kind of make you feel like, well, that decision's bad. But then you look at the other choices and they also have their own roadblocks. So then what do you do? So I think that was part of my issue this week, figuring out the video. Really quickly, what occurs, right? What occurs mechanically? I wonder what I'm about to say. It is the brain, yes. And again, very glossed over. A couple things are happening here, more than a couple, but I'm going to mention two. One is, if you'll recall from, I believe, my Stressed Brain Explained video, which I'll link below, I believe it's in that video that I briefly mentioned that when our brain has a lot of things to catalog or pay attention to, whether it's inside or out in our environment, it can start to feel very overwhelmed and not be able to handle it all. And our stress and our worry and anxiety that we talked about a couple weeks ago, which I'll also link below, that can start to rise and all that stuff. And so our brain can start to feel in a very dangerous state where there's a lot of things going on, a lot of triggers of danger, even though we may not perceive it that way logically. And so that can cause our brain to freeze because it doesn't know what decision is going to keep us alive the longest. It doesn't know what the survival decision is because it can't handle everything. And it literally causes us to freeze. So it triggers that fight, flight, or freeze mode that we're in. And that's basically those two things, that freeze thing that our brain causes us to do and it sort of shuts down, but also is trying to tackle a lot of things. So they're connected. And that can cause us to be indecisive because we don't know at its core what the best survival decision is. And then that can become super overwhelming. And that's exactly what happened to me. But I didn't realize it because I wasn't paying attention, because I was so focused on the task that I missed what was going on inside. And even though I sort of had an inkling here and there, again, I was so focused on just focus on the task. Let's just get through the fog, get through the frustration, blah, 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 blah. And that takes me into some of the things that I did, but also some of the things that would have helped if I had used them at the time. The number one thing that I found helped for me and that I do every time I feel indecisive. Now, sometimes, and especially in this case, if I'm not paying attention to what's going on inside here, it tends to happen at the very end. And that's what happened this time. So the number one thing that I do and did was I just took a break, which can feel extremely scary in the moment because you feel like you're running out of time a little bit. You know, it's like there's all this pressure and there's this force to choose and to get done. And, you know, the more time you're spending feeling indecisive, you're losing time to actually do what it is you choose to do, etc. So usually if I start to notice that that's happening, I do stop, I take a break. But even if it's at the, you know, the very apex of what I'm feeling, I drop. So I stop and I drop. And if you'll recall from that stop, drop, and roll stress hack that we talked about, I don't know, I'll link that video below. Instead of doing it in here, I do it out there. I do it with the things that I'm doing because that, mechanically speaking, I just know, even though emotionally I'm like, I don't want to stop. I just want to do whatever it is I want to do. I mechanically know that I need to stop and drop whatever it is I'm doing because it's going to help my brain catalog everything. It's going to help the dust settle. It's going to give my brain time to catch up, to understand that there's not danger ever present, and it's going to give me just a chance to recharge. Now, what I do during that break is I either go and do something else, but I always try to not do it in that same crazed feeling state. Or I just like stop and just shut my eyes and just try and, you know, use some of the other stress hacks that we've talked about. So we'll get more into that in a future video, but that's definitely the number one thing that I did. Some of the other things that you can do that I discovered and was reminded about when I looked into it for today's video, and let me turn the page and just make sure that I'm saying it all because I don't want to miss anything. Let's see. Oh, questioning the motives and the reason behind the decision that you feel like you have to make. Is it really that big of a deal? Who's pressuring you? Is it outside people or other people, or is it yourself? And questioning why you're feeling the indecision. And is it valid? Is it really, are the stakes that high for you to be reacting this way? And if not, and if the pressure source to make this decision isn't really from a healthy place or from people that really should matter in this decision, then taking note of that, because that also helps take the pressure away and take the power away and help you understand the situation and have more control. Let's see. I don't know what I wrote there. I'm sorry. Oh, that's right. When you do this, it sort of allows you to see the whole picture. For me personally, when I get in this this sort of indecision turmoil, I tend to be so focused on the details and I'm missing the big picture. And when you do the steps that we just talked about, it kind of helps you see the big picture a lot easier. And then lastly, what you can do from there is then sort of break it down, chunk it out, and go, okay, there's this big thing. I'm going to chunk it down into twos, and then I'm going to chunk those twos down into their own twos, and whatever you need. That can really help us help the situation become more digestible for ourselves, for our brain, and help us also to figure out what decision do we want to logically make, or what decision is the best decision, and it can help us do it more efficiently and faster, which is really what we want in the end anyway. That's basically it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and joining in. I need dinner, I need food, I need cookies. So I'm gonna go chill out, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much, you guys. Have a wonderful day. It's gonna be great. See ya. Bye.